I'm Eric Shepard, and we are back with another tutorial on how to create AI choral music. I did an episode of Regarding Music maybe 3 to 4 months ago about how I was using some AI tools to create demos of my choral compositions, and I have to say that in the few months that have passed since then, I've discovered some really great tools for creating AI choral music that yield a better result and are much easier to use. But I'll link that podcast episode in the description for those who are interested to see how far we've come. Before we get too far into things here, I want to touch on why a choral composer might be interested in some of these technologies, some of the use cases, if you will. I've had a lot of people in my comments on Instagram being, some of the AI choral stuff that I've shared being like, why would you want to do this? It's going to make music soulless and choirs getting zucked type of thing. But the fact of the matter is, AI choral demos create a massive opportunity for choral composers. We can't really get accurate digital demos of our music in that a lot of notation softwares don't include text, and using AI is a great way to do that so that you can have accurate or better demos for things like master's applications, school projects, or even for creating content. All right, so we're going to start off here in Sibelius, which is the notation software that I use for all my compositions. You can use any notation software that allows you to export as an XML file. That's really important. You won't be able to do this process if you can't export your composition as an XML file. This piece here is a song for SATB choir that I wrote about a year ago. The piano here is just for rehearsal purposes. This is a fairly straightforward piece. It's very homophonic. I kind of wanted to do this process with a piece that wasn't too complicated, just to make sure that it would work with the AI. So before we get going here, let's have a listen to the opening of the piece, because this is kind of our starting point, right? One of the main use cases of doing this kind of AI choir stuff is that you can create playbacks that have the text. And I really want to hit home that while the notation softwares have playbacks that are valuable for writing, and sort of hearing it as you go, you really can't get an accurate idea of what the piece is like because it doesn't incorporate the text. That was the first phrase. Let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of it here. So you're going to go to File, Export. This might be different if you're doing different notation softwares, but for Sibelius, you're going to export it as an XML, and that's going to export to your scores folder. So once you've exported your piece as an XML file, you're going to want to go to a website called Cantamuse, which is a great tool for creating AI choir. And then, so basically what happens is you upload your XML file. You upload it and wait a few minutes, and it creates an AI rendering of your piece that utilizes text and sounds decently convincing. So what we'll do is, I've already uploaded this one, but I think you have a limited number of uploads until you have to pay, so I don't want to waste one of my uploads here. But I've already uploaded a few versions of this one. Of this piece, Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal. So we'll open it and have a look at what the AI created. So after you upload and kind of wait for 10 or 15 minutes, this is what you'll get. You can kind of cycle through to look at different parts of the piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play what we have here. And this is definitely a step up from what we listened to in Sibelius, but there are still some fairly significant issues to iron out here that we'll dive into after listening to it. So here's here's what Cantamuse gave us on the first try.
Now sleeps the crimson petal, now the white, nor waits the cypress in the pale orchard, nor winks the goldfin in the porphyry font. The fire thou canst waken thou with me, waken thou with me. Now droops the milk white peacock like a ghost, and like a ghost she glimmers on to me. Now lies the earth all down to the stars and all thy heart lies open, open unto me.
All right, and before I continue on with it, the text for this piece is it's called "Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal" and is by Alfred Lord Tennyson. I wanted to make sure to put that in there. This was definitely an improvement on what we heard in Sibelius, mainly in that we have the text, so it's actually like an accurate picture of what the piece would sound like if a choir sang it. There's still some fairly significant issues, though. Mainly, I think the most obvious ones are there's some pretty big diction issues here. AI choir has to work on its diction, and there are ways that there's some pretty cheese ways of working around this here. So, when we had the Firefly Awakens, I found that, diphthongs and triphthongs sometimes the AI has a difficult time with. They could have had a better fire. Like they got to the eyes, the e sound too quickly. But I mean, that's the picky choir conductor in me. But this bit here, when the Firefly Awakens, it sang when the Firefly Wackens. It also struggled a bit with the word porphyry. But I mean, who wouldn't struggle with that reading it, right? There was another fairly significant one. Where was it? Palace. Yeah, it's in Palach. Which I feel like that's definitely not how we want it to sound. So, you could take this, and depending on what you're using it for, right? Like if you're like just kind of creating a demo for fun or for an assignment or something, you could just take this and kind of take the L, for lack of a better way of putting it, on some of those diction pieces, but. I'm out here. We're breaking boundaries and pushing the envelope here. So there is a way that we can address some of these things, and so I've created a new Sibelius file called "Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal AI1," where what we're going to do is we're going to address some of those diction pieces by writing the text out more phonetically, right? So if we go to Palace, instead of writing Palace the way that it's supposed to be written, we write it phonetically. We have pal and less, two words that sound a lot like it, which might seem obvious. I put it this way: it took me longer to come to this as a solution than it probably should have. That you can go into Sibelius and write the words the way that they're supposed to, like more phonetically, right? And basically, what I did then, I've gone through and done that process, looking for words that might be a difficulty. Another word that was a difficulty was dane, because it's a Greek word, right? Like there's a setting that you press to say that it's in English. So I've found that the AI can sometimes struggle with words that are borrowed words, like Latin words, Greek words. It doesn't do as well with. So what I did was instead of writing it, I think it was DANAE. I've written it as Dawn and A, the Canadian in me here. I gave this a go to see if the AI would have an easier time picking that up, and this is the result. I've got a different Cantamuse file here. I basically just did that process again with the new Sibelius file. So we have Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal AI1. We'll have a listen to this. We won't listen to the whole thing just for the sake of brevity, but you can see that we've addressed some of those issues in a better way.
Now sleeps the crimson petal, now the white, nor waits the cypress in the palace walk, nor winks the goldfin in the porphyry font. The firefly wakens, waken thou with me, waken thou with me. Now droops the milk-white peacock like a ghost, and like a ghost she glimmers unto me. Now lies the earth all dawned to the stars, and all thy heart lies open, open unto me.
So that was a fairly significant improvement on some of those diction issues that had a really non-technical solution. So basically what I did next was I selected each part, listened to it individually, and screen recorded and took it into Premiere Pro so we can kind of mix each part down a bit, because right now it's feeling very square, which I think I don't know how you can address that, to be quite honest, but we have a lot of reverb and it sounds very digital, right? So recording each individual part so we can edit them separately in Premiere Pro to kind of create a nice choral blend, right? So at this stage, I took it into Premiere Pro, and the parts that required the most work I found with this were the tenor and bass parts. I found the upper voices were actually pretty good, for getting a choral sound. All things considered, I was happy with those, but I was not happy with the tenor and basses. So right here in Premiere Pro, I've got our tenor part, right? So this bit here, that's the raw file that we took off. I just had it on my desktop and ported it into Premiere Pro. So let's play the tenor part to see what we're dealing with here out of Cantamuse.
Now sleeps the crimson petal, now the white, nor waves the cypress in the palace walk, nor winks the goldfinch.
All right, I think you get the idea that, this sounds pretty digital, but one of the things that I actually picked up on once I brought this tenor part into Premiere is that this is the tenor part that the AI generated is actually an octave lower than the tenor part that I wrote, right? So if we go back to Cantamuse here, just for a quick second, right? We have this B, which is a B in the top of the bass clef, but the B that we're actually hearing is below the bass, which that's a pretty big problem, right? That we have the tenor part being down an octave. So I had to find a way to get around this, which there's another great AI tool that can help you get around this called kits.ai. So I've been using kits.ai for a while. I've created other AI renderings using this tool. Kits.ai basically allows you to take a vocal track and like put it in a different register or have like presets that makes it sound different, right? It basically uses AI to edit your voice. So I've created AI choral renderings where I've gone and sung, all four parts, sung the soprano part in my octave and used the AI to make myself sound like a soprano or an alto, which is much more involved than this process. All right, so we are in kits.ai now. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring that file that we exported with our tenor part from Premiere Pro into kits.ai. So yeah, I sent it to the desktop, just drag and drop. And it's going to upload. Now, remember that we had a pretty big issue with the tenor part here, in that the AI in Cantamuse created that tenor part being an octave lower than it's supposed to be, which in many ways makes it the bass, which is a huge problem for creating a good choral AI rendering. So what we're going to do is we can actually pitch shift, and there are 12 semitones in an octave, so we just pitch shifted up 12 semitones. I find there's an auto tuner pitch correction. I usually don't recommend doing that. I find it can just make it weird and more digital sounding than it already is. Like we want to get away from that. And then what we can do is we go to select a voice. So there are all these presets here that you can pick from, and then so we're dealing with the tenor part, so we'll go with male. There are a lot of different presets here, but one of the problems, it's not a huge problem that I've ran into using kits before, is that there aren't really any choral presets. It's all geared more for pop music and rock music, and there aren't really any designed for doing choral music, but that's okay, because I find some of the jazz presets work decently well for what we're doing here. I find male traditional pop we'll go with, and male jazz. Click continue. All right, so we're back out here. We have our settings, we have our voices, and we'll just click convert here, and it will kind of just do its thing. All right, so that's finished. Let's have a listen to the male jazz here.
Now sleeps the crimson petal, now the white, white, nor waves the cypress in the palace wall.
So yeah, so that is a pretty significant improvement from what we had before. And you just click this download button and it will download as a wave. Then we're going to do the same process for the bass. We didn't need to pitch shift it up an octave, but just to make it sound a little less digital. I just find that the presets in kits.ai lend themselves a bit better to creating a good male choral voice, whereas the upper voices from Cantamuse I think are better than what you could get from kits.ai. So once we've adjusted those, we kind of put everything together here. So what I've done is we basically have soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, and I've done the kind of basic audio editing. I find putting it in a small room setting on Premiere and adjusting some of the dynamics, and I find if you can take the reverb off, that's pretty good because there's a lot of reverb on a lot of these sounds. But yeah, basically I just fiddle with them in Premiere Pro until I'm kind of happy with it. We'll have a look at our kind of end result here a little bit.
Now sleeps the crimson petal, now the white, nor waves the cypress in the palace walk, nor winks the dolphin in the porphyry font. The firefly wakens, waken thou with me, waken thou with me. That roots the milk, white peacock like a ghost, and like a ghost she glimmers on to me. Now lies all down it to the stars, and all thy heart lies open unto me. Now slides the sun, silent medium, and leaves a shining furrow as thy thoughts in me, as thy thoughts in me.
All right, so that was the end result of this process and kind of what you can do with AI when it comes to making choral demos. I want to remind everyone, just think back to where we were at the beginning of this video, where there was no text and it sounded really digital. I mean, this still sounds digital and very square to me, but the fact is it gives an accurate representation of what the piece sounds like. And I'd say, frankly, we're probably 70% as good as what you might get out of like an amateur choir. It's really easy to say, well, why don't you just find a choir and get them to do your work? But like, if you're a student or a content creator, you can't always do that, or you can't do that at the pace that you write music. So I think that this process opens up a lot of opportunities for composers and for any choral composers watching this. I hope you learned something and can take some ideas away from this.